Welcome, everyone, to another deep dive. Today, we're really plunging into, well, a pretty powerful idea. Kind of challenges how we usually think about success, especially solo success. We're exploring how collective effort, working together, can genuinely transform your personal journey and your professional impact, too. Our main guide for this journey is a book called Kingdom Synergy, Rediscovering God's Plan for Peak Performing Mission Teams. It's by Chris R. Velasquez, and Chris has quite the background. We're talking 25 years as a missionary pastor over the Philippines, so deeply involved in missions training, church planting, real hands-on experience. So our goal, our mission for this deep dive, is to unpack why this book argues that, real lasting impact. It doesn't come from these heroic individuals going it alone. It comes from well-structured collaborative teams. Think of this as maybe a shortcut to understanding a really solid, biblically grounded vision for teams that actually, well, perform and last.
Absolutely. And we're diving into a question that feels, well, incredibly relevant today, doesn't it? In this age where we're supposed to be hyper-connected, all these digital tools, why are so many leaders still feeling burned out? Isolated, it's a real struggle. So this deep dive, it really offers a contrast, looking at solo efforts versus these robust team-based approaches. The hope is to give you some clarity and maybe some real resilience too.
Okay, so the book kicks off with this kind of paradox, right? Let's really dig into that. What happens when leaders try to do it all themselves, even with all the tech we have now? Because the truth is, even with smartphones and instant communication, something deep down seems to be breaking, especially in global missions, you see it. Leaders are quietly burning out. Ministries are fragmenting. And trust is eroding where you'd expect, real cohesion.
Right. And what's fascinating is how Velasquez tackles what he calls the myth of the heroic individual head on. This belief, that one really gifted, anointed leader can just spark a whole movement that lasts all by themselves. He basically says, look, that myth, it's catastrophically misaligned, his words, both with scripture and with reality.
Catastrophically misaligned. Wow.
Yeah. He states very clearly the New Testament offers, and I quote, no template for isolated apostolic ministry. Just not there. It's a powerful pushback, really.
And the numbers the book shares to back this up, they're pretty sobering. They really paint a picture of the cost of, well, low trust and this isolation. Could you walk us through some of those?
Yeah, they really hit home. Get this, 70% of pastors say they feel lonely or isolated. 70%.
70. That's
huge. It is. And maybe even more stark, over 1,500 leaders, they're leaving ministry every single month. Burnout, conflict, it's driving them out.
Every month.
And for anyone focused on multiplication, church planting, only about 10% of church planters actually manage to reproduce another church within 5 years. Just 10%.
Those statistics are just staggering.
Yeah.
And honestly, they ring true. I mean, I know people, I've felt that pressure myself at times. It really shows the toll trying to go it alone takes, doesn't it?
It really, really does. And if you connect those dots, the numbers point to what the book calls a structural failure. It's not just about individuals failing. The structure itself is often weak. Without that relational scaffolding, that sort of invisible architecture of support and trust, even the most visionary leaders become, well, vulnerable. Very vulnerable.
Right, like a building without proper supports.
Exactly. And without clarity, without collaboration, the mission just drifts. Or worse, it dies out. So neglecting this invisible architecture of team health, as he calls it, that directly leads to mission drift, relationships breaking down, burnout, and it stunts multiplication. It's like trying to build something amazing with half the instructions missing,
That makes sense. So given those numbers, given that failure, it feels like the Lone Ranger model is fundamentally broken. If going solo is unsustainable, where do we look? What's the alternative blueprint the book suggests?
That's the perfect question, and that's exactly where the book pivots. It moves from the problem to the solution, arguing for what it calls apostolic, team-based mission. That's presented as the real engine, especially for church planting movements.
Okay, team-based mission is the engine.
Yeah, and it doesn't just say that. It digs deep into the Bible to show examples of this team mandate. It's not just a nice idea, it's rooted. It actually starts right at the very beginning. With the Trinity as a team, Velasquez points out how God himself, Father, Son, Spirit, exists in this eternal communion, this perfect team. Even creation, remember Genesis 1.26, let us make man? It was collaborative. He argues this isn't just a strategy God used, it's an ontological reality. It's part of the very nature of God and reality itself.
Wow. So teamwork isn't just like a good management technique. It's baked into the fabric of existence from God outward. That's deep.
It is. And then, naturally, it moves to Jesus and the 12. Think about it. Jesus didn't just gather followers. He chose a team. He modeled leadership as shared life, living alongside them. And crucially, Mark 6.7 tells us he sent them out 2 by 2.
2 by 2, not alone.
Exactly. Showing that, as the book puts it, community is not just a container for the message. It is part of the message. The how matters as much as the what.
So the teamwork itself sends a message that definitely shifts things.
It really does. Then the book points to the Antioch model in Acts 13. Remember that story? The Holy Spirit spoke, but who did he speak to?
The leaders there, the prophets and teachers.
The team, exactly. While they were worshiping, fasting, praying together, it led to this collective discernment, this group understanding about the massive mission to the Gentiles. It wasn't one guy getting a vision in isolation.
Collective discernment. I like that.
And finally, it looks closely at Paul's missional bands. You read Paul's letters, and they're just laced with names, right? Barnabas, Silas, Timothy, Titus, Luke.
So many names.
All these collaborators, it shows the mission literally moved on the legs of collective effort, not these solitary, heroic feats. So summing it up, the book argues these accounts reveal something profound. God trusts teams with the stewardship of mission.
God trusts teams.
Yes. Specifically, teams forged in prayer, guided by vision, tested in conflict, and sustained by relational covenant. That's the kind of team we're talking about.
That's a really compelling picture. Okay, so this brings us right to the heart of it. Kingdom synergy, this term. This is where it gets really interesting, isn't it? It sounds like more than just, good cooperation.
Oh, much more. It's not just cooperation. The book defines kingdom synergy as a spiritual dynamic. That's key. It's where the whole truly becomes more than the sum of its parts.
More than the sum.
Yeah, think exponential impact. The word itself comes from the Greek synergos, which simply means working together. But in this context, it implies something powerful, almost supernatural, happening when the right elements come together in the right way. Like 1 + 1 = 10 or even 100 in terms of impact.
1 + 1 = 100. Okay, now you've got my attention. So what are these elements? What makes these specific apostolic teams different? What creates that synergy?
Well, the book breaks it down into 5 key dynamics. These things are integrated, they work together. First up is clarity of calling.
Clarity. Makes sense.
Yeah. Every single member needs to understand their specific role, their gifting, their unique contribution. Ambiguity. The book is blunt. It just kills momentum, flat out.
So everyone knows their lane, basically.
Exactly. And a tool mentioned here is something called a vision and strategy paper, a VSP. It helps the team really nail down the what, the why, and the how of their work together. Gets everyone on the same page.
Okay. Clarity. What's second?
Second is covenantal unity. This is big. It's not just a professional agreement like, we agree to work on this project. It's deeper.
Deeper how?
Think more like a marriage vow or a deep family bond. It's about trust, yes, but it's a relational commitment that goes beyond circumstances or performance. It's what gives the team resilience when, inevitably, storms hit. They're held together by covenant, not just convenience.
Wow. So it's about who you commit to be together, not just what you agree to do. That's different from how most teams think, isn't it?
Totally different. Third dynamic, constructive conflict. Now, conflict is going to happen, right? Anytime humans work together closely.
Oh, yeah. Unavoidable.
But the book argues that when conflict is processed well, it doesn't have to be destructive. It can actually be catalytic. It can spark growth.
Catalytic conflict. How does that work?
Well, the source talks about using tools like conflict maps, ways to actually visualize the disagreement, get to the roots of it, and then find structured ways to reflect and transform that tension into, deeper understanding and stronger bonds instead of just letting it simmer or explode.
Okay, so conflict isn't the enemy. Unhealthy conflict is. Got it. Number 4.
Number 4, spiritual rhythms. This is crucial in this model. Things like prayer, fasting, worship, that collective discernment we talked about. They aren't just nice add-ons or things you do if you have time.
They're central.
Exactly. They're seen as the engine room of the team, the community. It's the source of power, guidance, and endurance. It's what keeps the team anchored in their mission spiritually.
The engine room. I like that visual. Okay. And the 5th dynamic.
5th is reproducible structure. These teams aren't just built to do the mission. They're designed to multiply.
Multiply what? Disciples?
Yeah.
Churches?
Yes, but more than that. They're designed to multiply teams themselves. The structure, the DNA, the principles, it's all built with scalability in mind, so you can replicate healthy, synergistic teams across different cultures, different contexts. It's about building a movement, not just a single successful team.
That blend,
Yeah.
the deep theology and these practical steps, that's what really struck me. It's not just high-level ideas.
Right.
So how does the book actually help teams put this into practice? Can you give us a peek at the toolkit?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It doesn't stop at theory. It offers this integrated toolkit, as you said, really practical stuff. For instance, those vision and strategy papers, VSPs we mentioned, templates and guidance to help teams really define their identity, mission, and even how they'll measure progress.
So very concrete.
Very. Then there are the conflict maps, tools to help teams actually diagnose why they're disagreeing, get to the root causes, and map out steps toward restoration. Not just avoiding conflict, but resolving it healthily.
That sounds incredibly useful. What else?
There are team covenant templates. These help teams move beyond just saying we trust each other to actually articulating concrete commitments.
Yeah.
What does that trust look like in practice? How do we handle disagreements? What are our shared values?
Moving from vague to specific.
Exactly. And then there are role-based design models. This helps clarify individual gifts and how they function within the team, often using frameworks like the apostolic typologies.
All right, the APS model you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Can you just quickly remind us what those letters stand for anyone maybe not familiar?
Sure. APEST stands for Apostle, Prophet, Evangelist, Shepherd, Teacher. It's based on Ephesians 4. Think of them less as rigid job titles and more like different essential functions or flavors needed for a healthy, multiplying team.
Okay.
Apostles are often the pioneers, the starters, the architects. Prophets bring challenge, insight, alignment with God's purposes. Evangelists are the recruiters, the gatherers, drawing people in. Shepherds nurture, care for, and protect the community. And teachers ground the team in truth, understanding, and wisdom.
So recognizing those different strengths helps the team function better.
Absolutely. It ensures all the bases are covered, leverages everyone's gifts. And finally, the toolkit includes spiritual formation guides, practical resources to help teams establish those vital daily, weekly, even seasonal rhythms of prayer, reflection, and connection with God that fuel the mission.
It's a pretty comprehensive toolkit.
It really is. And what's fascinating, if you step back and look at the bigger picture, a lot of modern organizational research, it actually echoes these biblical patterns in really striking ways. It's like secular research is catching up to ancient wisdom.
Oh, interesting. Like what?
Well, for example, study after study shows that diverse teams consistently outperform homogeneous ones. Different perspectives lead to better problem solving, more innovation. That resonates with needing different gifts like papist, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And think about trust. Patrick Lencioni's famous work, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, he identifies the absence of trust as the absolute foundation of team failure. It cripples everything else. That lines up perfectly with the book's emphasis on covenantal unity.
Trust is the bedrock. Makes total sense.
And then there's the whole concept of psychological safety, which researchers like Amy Edmondson at Harvard have highlighted. Teams thrive, they innovate, they learn when members feel safe enough to speak up, to admit mistakes, to propose bold ideas, even to challenge the status quo without fear of being shut down or punished.
Which sounds a lot like needing that covenantal trust and healthy conflict resolution you mentioned.
Exactly. It all connects. These ancient biblical principles and modern research findings, they point to the same things. Trust, clarity, handling conflict well, valuing diversity, creating safety. These aren't just nice to haves. They're essential for high performance, especially in complex, high stakes work.
So let's bring this home. What does all this mean for you listening right now? How can this synergy approach actually help your team?
Well, fundamentally, it's designed to help your team move beyond just, getting along or basic cooperation, beyond mere cohesion.
To something more.
To high-impact performing, as the book calls it. Performing in a way that truly bears fruit, aligns with your mission, whether that's gospel fruit or other forms of positive impact. And crucially, it builds in resilience and fosters that deep unity that's so often missing.
And who is this really for? Who benefits most from digging into this?
Well, the book seems particularly aimed at leaders in faith-based contexts, so church planters, mission leaders, pastors, even seminary students preparing for ministry, but also leaders of faith-driven NGOs, nonprofits, maybe even Christian entrepreneurs trying to build businesses with kingdom values. Really, anyone leading a team where mission and values are central, the goal is to equip leaders for the tough realities, build that resilience, build that unity.
And the book really feels like a call to rebuild, doesn't it? For anyone out there feeling maybe overwhelmed or stuck or like their team just isn't firing on all cylinders, it's a message that maybe the answer isn't just a better strategy on paper. Maybe it's about better relationships, finding those spirit-filled collaborators, and cultivating that deeply rooted community the book talks about.
Exactly. And that really raises a crucial question, doesn't it? How do we measure the legacy of our work, our ministry, our movement? Velasquez argues pretty strongly that the true measure isn't the size of your conference or your follower count online. It's in the depth of its community and the durability of its fruit. How deep are the roots? How lasting is the impact?
Depth and durability, not just flash.
Right. And this kingdom synergy model offers a blueprint, really, a way to avoid that common cycle of burnout, to actually foster unity and to build a team that's truly movement ready, a team that can last.
So wrapping things up today, the core message seems pretty clear. The future of impactful work, especially in missions and ministry, probably isn't going to be found in the brilliance of one. It's found in the synergy of many. It's really an invitation, isn't it, to move beyond that solo-driven mindset?
It absolutely is. And the book leaves us with a thought that's, well, incredibly provocative. It circles back to Jesus' words in John 13:35. By this, all men will know you are my disciples if you love one another.
Love one another.
Yeah. The implication being that the unity, the love, the synergy within the team, that itself becomes a powerful, visible, almost prophetic sign to the world. Maybe more powerful than any individual accomplishment or program. Our teamwork is part of our witness.
Wow. That gives you something to think about. So a final thought for you listening. If you've ever wondered why your team struggles, even when you share the same vision, or if you've personally wrestled with burnout, isolation, or just endless miscommunication, maybe, just maybe, it's time to pause. Time to, as the book suggests, reflect, repent, rebuild. Time to rediscover God's plan for peak-performing mission teams. Because the good news is, you are not called to walk alone. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep learning, keep exploring, and keep building teams that don't just survive, but truly thrive together.